Okay. Yes, we are live. Welcome. Let's make sure I'm on the screen there. And here come all my friends. Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday evening. Okay, we're just going to give everyone just a minute or two to find the video. Hello, hello. I'm just going to sit here and relax for a few minutes. I see all my friends tuning in. Hooray! I was hoping we were going to get a good turnout. Yes, hello again, Anne. I was on this morning. I knew I would be back at 8 tonight. I do not think I will be live tomorrow morning, though. We have, I have things I have to do at the store, so that live will have to wait, but that's okay. Hello, hello, everyone. Okay, so welcome to the June calendar series launch party. These are becoming one of my favorite things to do. So we started this calendar series in January, and it has taken off, which is so amazing. I know for some of you this is repetitive because you tune in every month, but we are always getting new viewers all the time. So I just want to kind of go over a little bit what it's about. What you're looking at here is this month's bundle, but I'm just going to set that aside for a minute because I'm going to pull on my album. I forgot to grab the May page at the store today before I left. It has been sold out for a while now, so I definitely could have brought it home. I'm trying to make sure I get on screen here. So I have chosen to turn the calendar series into something that I incorporate into my scrapbook. So I'm going to show you that part of it first. So I have the first 4 months in here. May is still at the store. I forgot to grab it. And then June we're launching tonight. So, but when I flipped my album open today, I thought, this page is blank. I think we need to work on a cover page. So how many people are doing this in an album that are watching? Just thumbs up. Because I think there might be some interest in a cover page to sort of kick off your album. And I would certainly be interested in doing that. We've got lots of people that are incorporating it into an album, which is really cool because when we started the calendar series, it was designed, the pages were designed to go at the top of a blank calendar, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. But we quickly became aware that people were purchasing them just for single page layouts for their albums. And when I developed the calendar series, I really wanted to appeal to both crowds because it is such a flexible project that I think it works in so many different ways. But for me, it goes in an album. So I just wanted to show you what that kind of looks like. And I don't know if I can get my whole album on here, but there, that's most of it. So here's January. Remember way back in January when we started and I thought this was the coolest page ever? I mean, it's still very cool, but it just keeps getting cooler. So that was January. This was February, which I still love. And this was March, where we introduced everyone to the salvaged brick stencil. Do you know how many of these brick stencils we have sold? Oh my gosh. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, so, okay, so Kim just said, I'm doing calendars, but you need a cover page. So you could use the cover page as the very front of your calendar, which would be very cool. Okay, so everyone is wanting a cover page. Okay, I'm going to work on that. It won't be like next week or anything, but I'm definitely going to think about that. So I actually have a line in mind that is coming out later this summer. So it might work really well. So this is March, and then this is April, where I really took you guys outside the box to do this sort of mixed media background. And then May is missing. I didn't put May in here yet. So this is how the album will look. And at the end of the year, I will have 12 months of layouts in an album. And if my album is not filled, then I will continue with the next year. And then maybe I can get 2 years into a book, because I'm not doing pages in between the months, but of course you certainly could do that. But that's how it looks if you put it in an album. Now, if you're wanting to put your page in or onto a calendar, so I remembered today, this is the right way? Nope. I remembered today to bring home a blank calendar. So I'm going to turn it sideways like I did with the album, just so I can get it kind of all on the screen. So this is what a blank calendar looks like. So you've got the calendar grid on the bottom, and then you have this blank space on the top. And this is where the layout would go. And then the bottom part, you could do the same thing that we do on our calendar page, only you would do it right in the calendar itself. The top is a little bit different than the top of our calendar page that we use for the layout, but you can, I'm very sure, modify very easily to do the top portion there. But, and we do sell these 12 by 12 calendars blank, and you can use it for that. And they make great gifts. My daughter used to give us one every year, and she had babies, lots of babies, and got busy. And last year I got a digital one, and I told her I never wanted that again. So hopefully she's, I don't know, maybe we'll work on it together or something. I don't know. Maybe she's doing these calendar pages for me. I think she's going to chime in a minute and tell me to be quiet. But anyway, so this month's bundle, we are using the Sun-Kissed collection from Echo Park. And your bundle will include the 12 by 12 sticker sheet. It'll include 2 of the papers that are part of the collection. One is the multi-journaling card, and one is this beautiful plaid called Sunny Day. And then there is a sheet of white cardstock and a piece of vellum. And then also with the bundle, you will get a color photo. I'm not going to put it on the screen because I don't want you to see it yet. But you get a color photo of the 2-page spread. And then you also, on your bag, are going to get a label that has a QR code on it. And when you scan that with your phone or your tablet, you will be brought right back to this video where you can watch the launch party. And it'll have all kinds of measurements and tricks and demos for you when you are putting your page together. So the bundles are not live on our website until after I am done my video, because I want your full attention. And then we have said that the bundles will be ready as of Tuesday next week. They could be ready sooner, but I don't want to promise that. So if you're planning on coming to the store tomorrow, unless we tell you that your bundle is ready or you've received a notification that it's ready, it's not. Shelby is away on holidays. We need time to get the bags labeled up with the labels and the QR codes. There is a lot going on. We just like to make sure that we've got everything ready to go before we release them so that things are good. So we do like to give ourselves that little bit of a buffer. So we're saying Tuesday. So if you order tonight, you can add it to your box or your bag. But if you are wanting it shipped out or wanting to pick it up, you want to make sure that you get that email that says that it is ready to be picked up. Now, I know some email programs are blocking those notification emails. If you want to know, feel free to email us and we can let you know one way or the other if you're planning on making a trip in. Okay, so really fun, colorful collection. And now I'm going to show you what I did with it. So I sent out a little sneak peek today when I posted it on Facebook to let you know about the live. And I know there's some pretty excited people out there. I'm pretty excited about it too. So I'm going to show the single page part of it first. So here is the layout that I created using the Sun-Kissed collection. And I used a layering stencil, a bokeh layering stencil, to do this portion of the background, which I'm going to demo live for you tonight and show you how to do that. And then you'll notice here that the photos are matted on top of that beautiful plaid paper, but then there's also a little thin piece of vellum in here as well, which just kind of mutes that down just a little bit, but still allows that color to come through. And then bits of the paper and stickers are featured here too. And then if you are turning it into a calendar, there is the calendar portion of the layout. So I've pulled that stenciling over onto this side and added my photos in. And you will notice, I'm going to pull my January page back on. that I'm getting a little crazier with my pictures on the calendar side. So I'm just going to pull this in here and show you January's. So in January, I kept my photos very much inside those little boxes. You know, just my head, that's where my head was at, and I was keeping them inside there. And then when February came along, still very much inside the boxes, except for this one here. I couldn't crop it down without cutting one of us, our faces off. So I decided to extend it just a little bit past that box, and that didn't bother me at all. And then March came, and I started going sideways into the other squares because, again, I was going to run into trouble with cutting people's faces off, and I didn't want to do that. So I went horizontal. And then if you look in April, the photos are getting bigger, and they're going outside the boxes. I can't show you May because I don't have that. I think I went to full 3x4 sizes on a couple of them. And then you will notice in June that I am definitely going with some different options. And it is completely okay to do that depending on the configuration of your photos and how many you want to feature. So here you can see I've got a nice long one, but then I had a small one, so I kind of overlapped it, and it's not even in a box, and I popped it up. And then, you know, I've got a few that are in the boxes here and here. We've got another long one here and here. What is this doing here? How is that covering him up? Oh, this doesn't even go on the layout. I ended up not using it. But it somehow got sandwiched over top of poor little Liam's face. So here I've added this collage, and then we've got little Liam down here, and then we've got a longer photo and another one of those popped up photos here. So, you know, lots and lots of options for your photos. And really it just depends on how many you want to display and whether or not you're able to fit them in the box. But you can definitely get creative with how they are displayed, and I think it looks completely fine. So my comments weren't popping up automatically. Let me just see. Sharon says, my favorite. This is your favorite page? Everyone's saying hello. They want a cover page. Okay, awesome. So that is the spread for this month. I really love it. I love the colors. I love the stenciling and stamping that I have brought into the layout. I'm very happy with how it turned out. And these photos are from last year. I'm working on last year's photos just so I can have the layouts done ahead of time. And the boys had been strawberry picking with their mom, and they stopped by and they brought me a basket of strawberries, and then we ended up doing a little photo shoot. So I think it's funny that these are last year's photos, and you know, strawberry season is here right now. So it's kind of fun to go back and look at the photos and what we were doing. And obviously racing was in full swing for me last year, but we did squeak in some little time as well. And it was also my birthday month. So right there on the 8th of June is my birthday photo, which is very fun. So it was a great month last year. It was a great month this year. And hopefully you've got lots of pictures that you can pick and choose from. I usually pick one sort of highlight for the month that I feature on this page. But obviously you have the flexibility to incorporate as many photos as you'd like. But what I am going to do is kind of walk through some of the measurements that you will need when you are putting your page together from the bundle. So I'm just going to set these layouts just aside here. I'll bring them back and forth as I go through things. But we will start with the plaid paper. It's called Sunny Day. And it's amazing. I love this plaid. As soon as I saw it, I knew that I wanted to do something with it. So it's the plaid on one side, and then it's this beautiful sunshine scene on the other side. I'm not going to use any of the this side of the paper. It's all this side. So I have written out my little sticky notes, and we'll just kind of go through it. So I'll just put that up here for your reference. So the first thing we're going to do with this paper is we're going to cut out the center, leaving a 1-inch border all the way around the page. So I'll just get the layout here and I'll flip it over so you can see what I'm talking about. So you can see that we've just cut right the middle right out of that. and that just pops out, and then we're going to use that paper for other things. And then eventually you're going to cover it up with the white, so from the front you can't even tell that you have taken the middle out. And that's a great way to stretch your paper a little bit further. Even if you don't have plans for the middle of that paper, like you're not using it on the layout you're working on, it's a good idea to cut that out, because then you can use it on a future layout or whatever. So it works really well. I often do that. So that's the first thing you're going to do. Does anyone need me to demo how I do that? And I'll just wait for thumbs up if you want me to go ahead and demo it. I'm not going to demo it on this paper. I'll just grab a scrap and I'll do it on that. But I'm happy to demo it if you think you need assistance. I see a thumb. Okay, so I'm just going to grab a piece of white cardstock, and then I will show you how I go about cutting the middle out, just so you know how to do it. Okay, so here's the white cardstock. I'm just going to grab the trimmer that I use. So I generally use a guillotine trimmer when I scrapbook and make cards. But I do have this Fiskars trimmer that I've had for years and years and years. And I still pull it out from time to time and use it for different things. So this is one of the times that I'm going to do that. And the reason being is the blade that is on this trimmer has a point where you can stop and start. With a rotary trimmer or a guillotine trimmer, it just doesn't work as well. So I find this type of trimmer is the best option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my paper in the trimmer, and I'm going to have it hang 1 inch in this direction of the cutting line. Okay, so it's hanging 1 inch over this way. So I have measurements on that side of the cutting line, but if you don't, you'll just swing the ruler out and you'll put the edge of it on 11 inches. So that's going to automatically push your paper back on this side. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to fold the ruler down with your blade at the top, and you're going to put the blade point, which is the center of your handle, right on the 1 inch mark. Okay, and you're going to start cutting there, and you're going to keep cutting all the way down until you get to 11 inches at the bottom down here, and then you're going to stop. Okay, and then you're going to rotate your paper a quarter of a turn, and again, same steps. Put the edge on 11 inches or 1 inch over here. Start at the top at 11 inches, or sorry, at 1 inch, and cut down to 11. So now you can see your lines will intersect here. So that is going to pop out. If you find your trimmer doesn't intersect, just use a pair of scissors and make it intersect. You're not going to see that line, so it doesn't have to be super pretty, but you will get good at it. And I find it works really well. So again, start at 1 and finish at 11. And then the final side, you start at 1 and finish at 11. And then the center of this is just going to pop out, and you're left with this frame, which is going to basically be this piece right here. Okay? So that's what you have left over. And then you have this whole piece left over that you can use for other things. So that's how we cut the center out of the paper. And I hope that was helpful for those that needed clarification. So that's the first thing you're going to do. And then once you have the center cut out, you're then going to cut from the center piece. And I'll bring that piece from my demo back in here. So let's say this is your center piece. This piece now measures 10 by 10 because you cut 1 inch off each side. So you're going to cut a piece that measures 2 inches by 10 inches. And that is going to be going on the calendar side of the layout up here. So if you're putting it in a calendar, then you're going to have to maybe adjust what your size is. If you're not doing the calendar portion of it, then you don't even have to pay attention to that. But that measures 2 by 10. And then the next piece you're going to cut out of this is going to measure 3.5 by 9.5. And that piece goes on the layout portion right here. Okay, so 3.5 by 9.5. And then what you're going to do along the bottom here is you're going to tear the edge. I'm just going to hold that up so you can see. And it's just an irregular tear. You're going to expose the white side of the paper there, and that's just going to be the finished edge of that strip that goes down there. You don't have to do the tearing if you don't want. You can just leave it as a rectangle piece just the way that you cut it. I just thought it added a little bit of interest and texture to the layout, so that's what I did for that. So that is all that you're going to do for, oops, no, I'm sorry, one more thing. That's all you're going to do for the plaid part of the paper, but you are going to do one more thing. And I utilized this, and I often do this, especially with certain paper lines. But the barcode on this, you'll notice it says sun-kissed, and it has the sun with the sunglasses and a cloud. So to me, that is totally usable. And I did use it on the layout right here. So from your barcode strip, you want to cut a piece that is 2 7/8 of an inch long. It could be 3 inches. It's not a big deal, like whatever length you want to cut it. I mean, you only have so much to work with because eventually you're going to run into the words. But basically you want the same amount of white on the end of the strips on either side of that sun-kissed word. And I used it as a embellishment right on my page. So that is where I got that from. You also have another sheet of paper, so you can use the barcode off that one too, or cut it off and save it for another layout or whatever. But that is what I did with that. So that is it for the sunny day paper. So pretty easy. I'm just going to get stuff out of the way here. Next up, we're going to look at the multi-journaling card paper, which is this one here. And the first thing we're going to look at is the pieces I used from this are the words that say flip-flop season and the words that say life's a picnic. So those are featured, whoops, not on that page, on this page here. So I've cut it down to a 1/2 inch strip in both situations, and they're about 2 inches long. So I've just created some word strips to put in those 2 sections on the calendar page. And again, those are cut from those squares. I didn't use the picnic basket or these flip-flops. I just used the word portion of them. So that's that part. And then I'm going to pull out some circle punches. And what I did with those is I used them to cut out the Just Chill and Good Vibes, which you can see here, Good Vibes and Just Chill. Now, I used old-fashioned circle punches. I've had these around for years and years and years. We did order in a few punches. I'm not sure what is available, but we do have a special shopping section, which I will talk about at the end. And if we have them, they will be in there. But if you don't have circle punches, but you have maybe circle dies, you could lay a circle die over this section and see what size you can use to cut that out. Or you can make yourself a template with something and cut a circle out that way. You can even just cut it out as a square, just like it is, and tuck it in there. And so rather than having the circle theme, you would just have squares there, and I think it would look fine as well. But that's where I got those 2 things there. And then the other thing that I used a circle punch for on the flip side are these umbrella tops, and they are featured throughout my center section here on the layout. And I did use a 3/4 inch circle punch for that. I just sort of picked out the colors that I wanted and randomly placed them onto the background. And you will notice that I have done some stitching through the center of them. So once I had them in place, I just took my ruler and pierced some holes there and just did some stitching to add a little bit of interest to those circles. Okay, so that is it for the multi-journaling paper. That's all you're going to use. All right, and what's up next? The sticker sheet? No, let's talk about that. White. Okay, let's talk about the vellum. I'll get the vellum. So you have a 4 by 12 inch strip of vellum in your bundle, and that is going to be cut so that it measures 3 3/8 by 9 1/2. And that just layers right over top of that plaid paper that you cut previously. And then I also did some tearing along the edge to match the the plaid paper that I have already down. I'm reading comments here. What do we say here? Kim loves the sticky notes. Well, I totally stole that idea from Megan. She was doing some online tutorials and she was using sticky notes, and that way it kind of sits up here. So if I don't repeat it often enough for you, you can see it. So I thought it was a great idea. So I have been incorporating that into my videos now when I can, and I think people like that. And then Laura loves the colors, and Sharon says, your stitching is amazing. It looks like a machine did it. Well, I'm kind of a machine. I feel like a machine. So if that counts, then a machine did do it. I have been practicing stitching for a very long time. And it is something that I enjoy doing. It is not a machine. It is 100% me. But I am going to give you some tips about that in just a few minutes. So we'll talk about that. There are some things I can tell you about stitching that will help you. You too can have perfect stitching as well. It's very, very easy. So yeah, so that's the vellum. 3 3/8 by 9.5, and then you're going to tear the edge just so it matches the bottom of your plaid piece. Now, if you look really closely, mine does not match exactly. I know it's hard to see, but my vellum is quite jagged. It looks like someone took a bite out of it, but it's okay. What size is the larger punch? It's 1 3/4, I believe. Let me just measure that for you, just to be sure. But I'm pretty sure. Oh, yes. Let me just measure. I think it's 1 3/4. Yes, it is 1 3/4. 1 3/4 is what I did those. The squares on the multi-journaling sheet, let me flip it over here, are 2 by 2. So when you cut them out, you're really going like edge to edge. Like you can see on this, my 3/4 inch punch goes, it kind of cuts off some of it, but it didn't bother me. I was fine with that. But 1 3/4 is the size of that punch. And then the little punch is 3/4 of an inch. And that is what I used to do these circles here, which I think was so fun to do. Okay, so that's it for that paper and the vellum. Now we're going to talk about the sticker sheet and where I use things. Let's pull out the sticker sheet. I lost it. Oh, here it is. Okay, so here's your 12 by 12 sticker sheet. And I'm going to put my sticky note up here. I was really organized this time. So I kind of did them in clusters because that's how they're sort of featured on the layout. So on the calendar portion, I called this one cluster 1. Okay, so cluster 1 includes the umbrella, which you can find right here. And then the lemonade pitcher, which is here. And then I used a pink slice of whatever that is. It's right here. And then the word Summer Memories, which is down at the bottom here. So that's how I created this cluster. And then this piece was from the journaling paper. And then cluster number 2, which is down here. Let's get the next sticky note out here. Cluster number 2. So you will notice that I say I used the basket with the hat. Well, that was because it was covering up Liam's face, but I didn't really use that. So ignore that part on the sticky note because that was not supposed to be there. So the sign is the sign that's featured right here. The picnic table, which is here. And then I put basket with the hat, but we don't use that. So just ignore that. The flip-flops, which are the pink ones. Now, where are they? They're right here. The blue glasses, which are right here. And the hat, which is at the back here. Now, I want to point out that right here, I say life's a picnic, and we've got the whole picnic scene going on. Nowhere in these photos are we having a picnic. I kind of mentioned this today when I was doing my live. We were going through an outdoor line, a camping line. And I know not everybody is a camper or you don't camp in a tent or you don't have a trailer or whatever. But just because those things are featured on your sticker sheet or in your papers, it doesn't mean that you have to be actually doing those particular things to use them on your layouts. They all represent summer. Like, so this particular scene here, like people picnic in the summer, they go to the beach, they are poolside, they go to the park, you know, those kinds of things. So I don't mind putting those things on my layout because they just represent summer. Same thing as the camping icons on that outdoor line. I think it was called Happy Trails or something like that, from Simple Stories. And there were a few things that had tents and whatever, but you can make some clusters with your stickers and your ephemera. Even though you might not be camping or hiking, but you're outdoor doing things, as long as your pictures kind of blend in with the general theme of it, I don't see a problem with it. That's just my personal opinion. I mean, everybody does things differently, but try to have an open mind when you're working with products, because a lot of times they are sort of a generic, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a representation of the season or the event, but you're not going to find things so specific to what you're doing. Like you're not going to find stickers for when your grandma broke her leg, but you might find things that resemble the theme. And I think that is okay. Now I'm rambling. But yeah, so that was cluster number 2. And then finally, the title, which takes place on this page here. We use the Fun in the Sun banner, the summer word, which was probably my favorite part on the whole sticker sheet. I think that's what sold me on this line. Believe it or not, it was that sticker. And then see the lines through the sticker? That is what gave me the idea to stitch through these umbrellas. Like, my mind works in weird ways. I don't know. I saw it and I thought, ooh, let's try that. And then the banner is right here. And I just sort of put that underneath the title. And then you've got the sun and the cloud, which I did not put on there, which are also featured on the sticker sheet here. So that is the placement of all of the stickers, which I think worked out quite well on my layout. I am very happy with the balance and the way the colors worked and everything else. So that is pretty cool. And then the other thing I'm going to point out just before I start demoing how to do the stenciling is the stamping in the background. So I did use a stamp set that we have used before. I think it was on the February page. This was one of the ones, I think, no, I don't know. We've used this stamp set before and I've recommended it, but I pulled it out again and I used this open circle. So this is in the shopping section, which I will go over with you at the end. But this open circle, I randomly stamped in a couple of spots on the background and then over here in the stenciled areas as well. I'll just pull that up so you can have a closer look. Just kind of goes with that circle theme. I love to add a little bit of black to all of my layouts. I think it really helps the colors pop and it just sort of adds to the fun. And then you'll also see the word today is also stamped, and that's also from this set right here. And I just sort of stamped it, and you'll notice that the first one is darker and then it kind of fades out. So what I've done is I've put my stamp in the ink pad, I've stamped off on a piece of paper, and then I stamped 3 times right on my layout. And each time I stamp, it gets more and more faded out. So it just sort of blends into the background. And I've just added that in 3 different spots here and then in a couple spots on this side of the page as well. Then you'll also notice the black splattering. That is done after I do the stenciling. And I used the Winsor & Newton ink. So this comes in a 4-pack. And you get white, black, gold, and silver. And I just splattered it on until I was happy with the coverage. I did not splatter on this side of the page. You certainly can in those areas if you want to, but I just kept the splattering to the one side. So that is what I used there. And then for my photos, I'll again pull this up here so you can see that the edges on them are white, and that is because I sanded them with a sanding block. So I print my own photos, and then once I'm done printing them, I sand the edges off and just sort of expose that white core. So whether you print your own or you get them developed somewhere, all photos will have a white core to them and you're able to sand them. And I've done that on this page as well. So that's another little thing that I did. Just looking to see what else I have on my cart here. In the shopping section, there will also be this single sheets of this calendar paper. So if you want to do this part of the layout, that's an add-on. That's not included in the bundle because we don't assume everyone's going to do this part. And we don't want to just waste that paper. So if you want to do this part, then you can add that in as an add-on. And then the other thing, a couple other things that I used were this piercing mat and a piercer or poker to poke my holes for my stitching. So I will talk about that after I do the demo for the stenciling, but those are tools that I use for that. And then also on the calendar part, I do use a stamp set that I use to do the numbers on the calendar. And I don't stamp every square. I only stamp the open ones where the stamping will work. And there is a little shadow stamp that comes with this set that you can stamp first and then you stamp your number over top of it. And I just love that. And I feature that in all of my calendar pages throughout the year. And you can see that here. So I've used, this month I used Concord and Ninth Carnation ink. So it was pink to stamp the shadow and then just black ink to stamp the numbers on top of that. And when I'm doing the stamping, I like to use a small acrylic block. I find these are very easy to handle when you're doing really small stamping. I don't use a MISTI when I do something like this. I just do it freehand. And I find using a smaller block works really well. So this one here is from Lawn Fawn. It's the, I want to say 1.5. Yep, the 1.5 inch block. And this one is from a set from Hero Arts. There's 3 blocks in the set and they have a small one like this. So those are great to have on hand for the stamping portion. Talked about the calendars. Okay, any other things you want to go over before I flip to the demo part of the stenciling? Any clarification you need, just shout it out or type it in the comments and I will be happy to answer those questions. But we are going to work on the background. So that, the one paper I haven't talked about yet is the white cardstock. And what I recommend doing is stenciling the background first. And then we would cut it down. But you are going to cut it down to measure 11.5 by 11.5. I'm going to put the sticky note away while I'm doing the stenciling part, but just maybe take note of that now. You're going to cut it to 11.5 by 11.5, and then that will allow it some space for the plaid paper to show through on the background, which I think is cool. So that is what we did for that section there. Okay, so let's talk about the stencil. So the stencil I'm using is from Tailored Expressions, and it is called Bokeh. Are your pics on the page 2x3s? Well, I have no idea what my pictures are. Let me just see. Like I said, I print my own. So I often use collages when I do that, and then I'll just trim them down a little bit, but let me see. So they're 3 inches wide by 2 inches tall. So they're 2x3s. What did you ask me? They are 2x3s. Yeah, so I did 4 of them there. And I kind of put them on here to make it look a little bit like a film strip, but I mean, they're just spaced out evenly on there. And then my photos all vary in size on this size here. So basically just use the calendar part as a grid, and then you can measure out and decide how big or small you want to make your photos. And it's going to vary for everybody because depends on how many photos you want to use and in what configuration. But yeah, so the stencil is, it's a layering stencil. It's a 3-part stencil. It is one of my absolute favorites. And the reason I got it was because I make cards. And I love the fact that this will cover a card front quite nicely. And I did actually pull out a couple of examples away from the layout that I have used them. So here's a card that I made for my husband for his birthday. He is a beer drinker. So you can see I went vertically and I did it in yellows, and that is how the background looks. So in this particular case, it's sort of mimicking bubbles, like the foam in a beer. And it was super cool. Now I will point out that once I gave this card to my husband for his birthday, he said, okay, what do you want me to do with this now? And I said to him, well, you're supposed to keep it and display it somewhere. And he goes, well, I have nowhere to put it. So can you put it in your craft room? So it's been on a shelf in my craft room for 2 years now. So needless to say, I don't make him birthday cards anymore. But that is one that I have held on to, and that is using it in yellows. And then I've also used it on many other cards, but I've given them away, so I didn't have them in my stash. But here is another example of how to use the stencil with more colors. And this is used on, it's called an insider, and they are used, they're panels that are created by Tailored Expressions, and they're used on the inside of cards. So they've already pre-printed the greeting for you that goes on the inside. And then I used a stencil and actually stenciled over it just to decorate it and make it look nice for the inside of the card. But even if you were doing something like that on a card front, it would come across very similar. So you can see just by changing the colors or the orientation of it, you can create some pretty fun things. So this set would be great. In this particular instance, we're using it to go across the center of the page through the middle to create sort of a focal point there. But if you wanted to do a border down the side of a page, like maybe you're doing a bath page, bubble bath, maybe you are doing bubble blowing, maybe you are, I don't know, what else do you do that has circles? It's just a very fun effect. The bokeh effect is very, very, very popular. I'm just thinking like obvious things that you could be using it for, but the pattern itself is awesome and would look really great on layouts. And it's very easy to repeat across, you know, the longer distance, because you'll notice that the stencil itself, which I seem to have misplaced, oh, here they are, is only 6 inches. So it doesn't go, you know, completely across. You have to sort of move it, which is what I'm going to kind of demo. And it is layered. So you build up the bubbles and layer them over top of each other as you're doing the stenciling, which is really cool. Bubble blowing page, great idea. Yeah, so there's lots of options. I mean, those are the obvious ones. I just automatically think bubbles because they are circles, but you can do a lot of really cool things with the bokeh technique. The bokeh technique is often used when there is a reflection of light. So you could do it in yellow and just have it be like a sunlight thing or whatever. It's a very, very cool concept, and I love, love, love it on this page. Now, if you don't want to purchase the bokeh stencil, and do it like this, you could just simply stencil in different colors of ink across that area. You could pull another stencil that you have in your stash out and stencil that across there. I think the bokeh stencil is well worth the investment, even if you're not a card maker, because I feel like you would be able to use it over and over again. Like just think of an anniversary page or any kind of celebration that you do, like a birthday or anniversary, graduation, anything like that, to have something like this on the page would be really fun to do. So that's my spiel about the bokeh stencil. Now I'm going to show you how to use it. Now today I'm going to pull out my glass mat. I actually just had a conversation with a customer before the live. She had emailed. She wants to purchase a glass mat, and she was asking me questions about different sizes and different things that you would use a glass mat for. I have been crafting for 20 plus years. And I've worked on lots of different surfaces, including glass. And recently, I have really taken a liking to the Tailored Expressions glass mat, and I use it in a lot of my videos. And I think that's what's sparking the conversation. But there are other options. Like this is the Tim Holtz travel size glass mat. There is a larger one that I also have. I'm not going to pull that one out today. They all work exactly the same. You are working on a glass surface. The tailored one does have a magnetic base to it, so the glass mat is magnetic. So if that is an important feature to you, then that one is definitely an awesome one. But personally, myself, I like a glass mat that's easy to remove from my desk and store, because I use my desk for a lot of things. It's not just for crafting. So I don't want to have a glass mat permanently on my desk. It's not something that works for me. So I like the smaller sizes. The tailored one is smaller than this, and it is designed for card making. But if you're not a card maker but still stencil and stuff, you might find it useful. But if if you think that's a bit too small, this size is a very nice size to work with. And it's the one I've chosen to work on today because we are going to be doing stenciling, and I do like the glass portion for the ink, which I'll share with you in a second. So yeah, my layouts, my paper's going to hang off the edges, but that doesn't really affect what I'm doing because I am working through the middle section of the paper. So the stencils are numbered 1, 2, and 3. And I'm actually using them on a horizontal orientation versus a vertical. So you just have to watch that you're always having the words the right direction on the stencil so that you're stenciling in the right way. This pattern isn't too crazy if you do it wrong, but you want to do it consistent, whichever way you do it. Now, when you're doing the stenciling on the layout, what you want to do is you want to start the edge of the stencil about 3 inches down from the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a T ruler. It's very easy to center the stencil straight when you're working on the edge of the paper because you can line up the edge of the stencil and the edge of the paper. But when you get over here, it's a bit harder to make sure that it's straight. And the pattern is not straight, so it can get wonky pretty quick. So I'm going to use a T ruler. And this is one of the Misty ones. And this is the card making size. This fits inside the Misty. So I use this a lot. They do have a longer one. I believe we are sold out of the longer one right now. I could be mistaken. I know I ordered one of them and I can't remember which size it was. We will be getting that next week again. But these rulers are awesome. And they come 2 in a package, and they have imperial and metric measurements on them. So I'm going to use this to square up my stencil, and I'm just going to put it along the edge of the paper. I want the stencil to start 3 inches down from the top. So this portion of the ruler is 2 inches and this is 1. So I know that that's going to be exactly 3 inches. So once I get it on there, I'm just going to take some tape and hold it in place. So I know that it's square and it's straight and it's going to be great. So that is what I'm going to do for that. So now I'm going to start my stenciling process. And this is just the base layer. So we're going to do 3 layers. I'm going to show you the finished project again, which is here. So that's your finished look. Now I was doing a little bit of practicing because again, I've had this page done for a while, and I wanted to just make sure that I was going to explain it properly. So here's my practice sheet. So this is just the first layer of the stencil. I started to do the second layer here, but you can just see the first layer here, how I've got the colors kind of going across and overlapping a little bit, but you can see how sparse it is. Still looks pretty cool. That's just layer 1. And then this is layer 2, and you can start to see how the bubbles are going to start to overlap, and then the color will change. So you get lighter shades and darker shades. And then when we get the third layer on, it does it even more. And then we're going to do a little background stenciling as well, just with the ink, not stenciling, ink blending with just the ink and not the stencil. So it's sort of a 4-step process, but the end result is spectacular. I think it is wonderful. And again, you know, you can choose any color palette you want. I will tell you the colors that I've used to create it, and I find they match the papers really well. But you can dig through your ink colors and see if you have something that will work. So we're going to dive in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my blue over on this side. And I've chosen to go with Concord and 9th inks this time around. I think when I created this page, they had just done their new color release and they had added 24 new colors to the line. And I was super excited to use them. So, so I think that's why I chose them to match up my colors. But I'm going to use Harbor. And what we're going to do is we're going to start blending only half of the stencil or a portion of the stencil in that color. And we're going to start on this side. So you can kind of decide how you want your colors to be revealed on your page. Underneath this strip is going to be the green that I stencil in here, and I don't even really see it. So if you prefer, when you are putting your page together, to have that green showing, you could always flip it around, and then your strip is going to go here, and then more of the green would be exposed. So because you're kind of going down the middle, once your design is done, you can turn it and sort of decide which way you want your colors to go. But I'm going to start here with the blue. And the reason I love a glass mat when I'm stenciling is I'm going to pick up ink on here, and I never go ink to paper. I always brush off my brush a little bit, and you can see how much ink has come off of here. Now, if I was to use a paper towel or a cloth and do that, the ink is gone. You can't go back and pick it up. It's wasted. So this way, I can pick this ink up off of the glass mat and add it to my project as I go. So I find that, you know, you pay a lot of money for these ink pads and you really want to use every last bit of ink that you can. So I'm going to start blending, and I start with a light hand, and I just start swirling my brush around until I get the coverage that I want. Now remember, you're going to be adding 3 layers of stencil onto this. So you don't want this necessarily to be your darkest layer unless you're going to go dark, dark, and then work to light. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're stenciling, that you do want some gradient in color. You're going to naturally get that just because when the stencil overlaps, you're going to be inking over sections that you've done already. So the ink is going to build up. Okay, so now I'm going to go here and I'm going to pick up the ink that was sitting there, and then that way I can continue to stencil and build up that ink. So I'm going to go to, I don't know, about there. And this might vary just a little bit from my original design. Because I'm doing this by hand, I'm not a machine. You know, where I stop and start is going to make it look a little bit different each time you do it. It's never going to be the same twice. I think that Christy Pratt, our YouTube girl, she said that she was quoting Tim Holtz when he uses his mixed media stuff. You get what you get, and you got to be happy with it. You just, you know, you can't control and make it exactly the same each time. So you kind of have to go with the flow. You can kind of control it a bit because you know when to sort of stop and start, but you're going to get some variance. So I'm just grabbing a drink. So that's the blue. We're just going to set that aside for now. And then we're going to go on to the green. Now you don't see much green on my layout just simply because of where I placed my strip of paper, but I'm using Sprout from Concord and Ninth. Now I'm not brushing off my brushes on a cloth before using them because I was practicing already with these colors, so I know that's the color that's on the brush, so I'm not going to get too concerned about it. But what I am going to do, just so I don't make a mistake live, because that's usually when I'm going to do it, because I have ink residue here from a previous color, I'm just taking a cloth, a microfiber cloth, spraying some alcohol on there, and then I'm just going to rub that off. And this is another reason that I absolutely love a glass mat surface. It is almost instantly dry and perfectly clean right away. So whether you're using texture paste or anything, any kind of medium, when you're cleaning it up off of glass, it's a non-porous surface, so it just cleans up right away, which is very, very cool. So I'm just going to add my ink and blot it off. And now I'm going to actually stencil on here, but I'm going to overlap this blue because I want the colors to blend together. Okay, so we're going to start blending. And you can see how you're getting that beautiful blend where the two colors are matching up. Sorry, I'm reading comments. I keep debating on a glass mat. Oh my gosh, I am sold. Like I said, I've worked on many surfaces throughout the years. They all have their pros and cons, but a glass mat just has so many on the pro side. But for me, it's really important that I can take it off my desk and store it away and bring it back on and off and on. So for me, I love the Tim Holtz travel size mat, and I also really love the tailored one because I find I use that one a lot. And tailored is magnetic, so it can hold your paper and your stencils in place while you're working on them. But if you're not exclusively, if you are not using it for card making a lot, you may find the surface too small. You might find this size is a little bit better. But again, depending on what you want to work on, like if you're working on 12 by 12 layouts all the time, you may not want this hanging off the edge. You may want that bigger one. And maybe you're a person who can leave it on your desk all the time. I'm not that person. So I pull it out sometimes, but I often don't use that one. The travel size and the tailored ones are the ones I gravitate to. So there's sort of layer number 2. And then I'm going to come in with the stencil after I shift it down a bit, and I'm going to add my next color. So now is where I'm going to bring in my next color, which happens to be yellow. So I'm using Buttercup. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move my stencil down. So first thing, before I make a mess, is I'm going to just get rid of this ink. And I'm going to now slide my stencil over. So it looks pretty cool so far, right? And again, I'm going to use my T ruler just to help me line that up. So I'm going to sort of decide where I want this to overlap. It's not going to line up exactly because the pattern on the stencil fades out and gets bigger in the middle. So I'm just going to sort of place it kind of where I want it. Once you get all the layers on, it's not going to make a difference. So that looks good. And I know it's sort of straight, whoops, as I move it. Again, if it was a little bit off, this design is pretty forgiving. You just don't want your stencil design to end up going uphill. And that can easily happen. So that's why I like to use that ruler to just help me line it up. The scrapbooking version of these rulers, it's longer. So it does the full 12 inches of your page, which is nice too. Okay, so now we're going to go in with the Buttercup. And again, we're just going to oops, I forgot to turn my stencil off. I also don't want the ink residue from the stencil to transfer over and create a different color for me. So I'm just going to brush that off. Now I'm coming in with the yellow, and I'm going to start doing my stenciling here. And when I remove the stencil, you'll see that, you know, some of the stencil doesn't line up perfectly. That's okay. Don't stress about that when you're doing it. So I don't know about you guys, but when I'm watching videos, I love watching people stencil. It's like a thing for me. I don't know, it's crazy. And so now I'm going to work into the next area, which I'm going to switch to Sorbet, which is sort of a corally pink color. But I'm actually going to shift my stencil now because we've kind of done the middle section. I'm going to move it down and line it up with the other side so we can finish it off. So you can see in this area right here, you see how the colors don't match up exactly, or not the colors, the stencil itself. That's okay because you're going to cover it all up anyways. So now I'm going to come in from this side and I'm going to line up the stencil this way. And you can see how the pattern is going to join in the middle, and that way we can finish out our row. And again, I'm just going to remove that yellow ink off the top of that stencil, just so it doesn't blend in and give me a wonky color. All right, so I'm going to come in with the coral. Okay, and I'm going to, whoops, this one moved. There we go. I'm just going to start stenciling again. And again, I want to overlap the colors so you get some blending. And make sure you're going all the way up on your stencil, but don't get too carried away that you get way up here because you're going to end up with a line on your paper. If you feel like you're really going to be, you know, doing this, you may want to mask that off with some paper. But I try to be mindful and not get too swirly. It happens though, sometimes your mind wanders and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what just happened? Okay, so now we've got that section done. And then the last color that we're going to come in with, I'm just going to pick that ink up now because I can use it again in the next layer, is the Sweet Pea, which is my pink. Now I'm going to just remove a little bit of that ink there because I'm not coming way over here. Ooh, this is a juicy one. So you see how much ink is there? Like that's a lot of ink. Oh, you'll see me line them up again, Kim, don't worry. But that's a lot of ink that you would be wasting if you just did that on a towel. And if you went ink pad right to paper, you're going to get brush marks and, you know, gobs in certain sections, and that's not what you want to do. So I always brush off and then come in with a light hand and start blending. And I love how the bokeh stencil really blends those colors together. Like, I'm not going to have to go back to that ink pad at all to get all of the pink that I have on this section of the layout. And I still have all of that left. So I'm actually going to pick that up with my brush. And then when we come back with the next layer, my brush will already have ink on it. Okay, so now we've got layer 1 done. And that is what we've got so far. It looks pretty good, right? I mean, you could stop right there and I think it would be pretty cool. But it's going to get cooler. So again, I'm just going to make sure that I get that ink off of my mat here, just because I don't want to end up putting my layout in it. But just using like a wet cloth or whatever, you're gonna have to wait to dry. This way you are able to just move right into it. So now we're going in with stencil 2. So Kim, if you're paying attention, you're gonna see where I'm gonna move the stencil across. So this is again where I'm gonna line it up at 3 inches down from the top. And then I'm gonna hold it up so you can actually see what is happening. So now you can see the stencil is not lined up at all. It's like really overlapping in different areas, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, so now we're going to start again with the blue. So back to Harbor, and we're going to follow that same color pattern. I don't know if I've got ink on here, so I'll try. And you're just going to start stenciling. No, that's pretty dry. You're just going to start stenciling, and when you do, you're going to have areas where the ink is going over a circle that was there before, and then the ink starts to build up, and that's when you get that overlapping area that looks so cool, and it starts to fill in. And again, you want to kind of come over a little bit so that when you go in with your green, you're overlapping the color. So now we're coming back in with Sprout. And you really want to make sure that the colors overlap and you get that blending. And when I lift it up later, you're going to go, oh my gosh, but that's only layer 2. Now there are little dots on the bottom here. You want to make sure you get the ink into those as well. Okay, so now we're going to do the shift. So Kim, I think this is the part that you missed. I'm going to just wipe off the stencil a little bit, because we're going to be coming in with the yellow. Okay, oops, I just want to wipe off my mat. Just because I'm dragging my paper over that part, I don't want to get ink in spots that I don't want it. And that's where a larger mat with a 12 by 12 paper might be more helpful, if that's the size that you work with all the time. Is the white paper regular cardstock? It sure is. We're not using any wet mediums on this, so it should be totally fine. Okay, so now I'm just shifting this over. I'm going to come over a little bit further. Just kind of looking at my circles and placement and sort of seeing where they're going to sit. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And now we're going to come in with the yellow. I think I had ink on my brush already. Yep, so there's some there. Making sure you get up in the top and down and below to get those lighter circles. And then we're going to come in with the sorbet. Now I've got to be careful on this edge here. You know what? I think last time I moved it right now, and I think I'm going to do the same thing, because I don't want to end up with an edge. Okay, and then we're going to come in with the sorbet. And then the last one is the pink. So the pink seems to be my juiciest pad, so I'm just going to go very lightly on there, just because I don't need to waste. Well, now I went too light. So you can see how great the circles are starting to look over here. And you would never know that the stencil doesn't line up perfectly. And you can go on and on forever. Like you can do this on someone's wall if you wanted to. You just keep moving down. So that's layer 2, and you can see how it's already starting to fill in so nicely. And then stencil number 3 is this one here. And I'm going to just get a couple new pieces of tape just because mine are getting a little not sticky, and I want them to really make sure they stick into place. But I don't want the tape to be too tacky that it rips my paper either. So there's sort of a fine line, and you start to know what that line is. You're like, okay, time to replace the tape, and I don't want it to be too tacky. So this is the 3rd layer, the final layer in the stencil series. And I am loving how it is turning out. I remember when I was doing this, I had this idea in my head. So I was doing it, and I was telling Shelby that I was going to do it. And I think I sent her a picture every 5 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh, it's turning out just like I wanted it. Okay, so now we're going to go in with the blue again. And it's just going to fill it in even more. And then the green. I haven't been watching for questions. Okay. Could you use a pencil and put a mark at the top in the little square? You certainly can. Yes, so those are registration marks. Now the only thing is, if you are shifting the stencil down, you could put a square here, but then you've got to shift it all the way down to the next square in order to have that happen. You could draw a faint line across there if you want to, a pencil line, and then you could erase that afterwards. There's lots of ways to line it up. Again, I've gotten into the habit of using that T-ruler a lot, even when I'm scrapbooking, like lining up letters, sentiments, all kinds of stuff. I use that T-ruler a lot. So I find it's just the easiest thing for me to do. I don't have to put any marks on my paper or mess around with that. But whatever you need to do to line it up. But the registration marks are there if you're making a card and you're stenciling a whole background and you're using a 6x6 piece and you're going to end up cutting it down. You can actually mark those registration marks 100% to do that. But in this situation, I'm not sure it would be the best option, like the easiest option, but if it works for you, you can totally do that. Okay, so I'm just now trying to decide where I want to line up this stencil as far as where my yellow is going to go, because then I'm going to end up moving it over to do the coral and the pink. So because I'm coming in with a much lighter color, I'm just going to rub that off. Doesn't have to be completely clean. You just want to get most of it off. And you can see now how you've got this beautiful, that's all 3 layers right there. So see how it fills it in so nicely and how the colors just overlap and start to build up. And you get that real bokeh effect. Okay, so now we're coming in with yellow, which is buttercup. No, yep, buttercup. I'm just going to do that section here. As we'll use up all that ink. Okay, and now I'm just going to line it up from the other side. Whew, I've got lights on here. They're just making me really hot. I guess now I know what it's like to be in a concert. You know, they have all those lights. They must just be dying up there, because I'm dying. Thinking, holy. Okay. So now we're going to go in with our last two colors. The sorbet. Oops. I'm going to get rid of that yellow on here. All right, here we go. So it's a little bit of a process, but it's really, I think, very much worth it. I think the effect is really awesome. And there's definitely a wow factor. And then the last color is the pink, the sweet pea. And then we are done all 3 layers. And then it's just a matter of adding a little ink blending over top, just to blend it all in and soften it. You don't have to do that last step. Can totally leave it. But, and just make sure when you are doing the swap from one color to the other, you want to really make sure that you overlap the colors in the middle so that you get that really nice blend in between. Not that it's like a harsh line from one color to the next. You really want to make sure that you blend right over it and blend them together. Okay, so that is it for the stenciling part. Okay, let's see how we did. So here is the stenciled part, and you can see how it blends really nicely from blue to green to yellow to coral to pink. Okay, so like there's no like really harsh lines. It just kind of flows so nicely. So now the option that you have to do next is to actually blend with ink over top without the stencil to just fill in the background a little bit. And now this step you're going to go very lightly to start until you kind of get an idea of what that blend will look like. So I'll bring my page back on and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you can see here we've got just the pink ink, and then here you've got you've got white paper here. Here you've got pink in the background. So that's what we're going to be adding now. So I'm going to start with the pink just because I've got this here. Now this is quite a dark color. It's got lots of ink on the pad. So I'm definitely going to be brushing off until I have just a little bit of ink on there. And I'm just going to go in very lightly and start swirling around. And you can start to see that that pink background is starting to come in. So you can decide how dark or light you want to go with that. Or even if you want to do it at all. I mean, you might like just the look of it without the ink blending. And again, you want to make sure when you're doing this that you're going to have your colors intersect and blend over each other so that you get that graduated color as it goes through, because you don't want it to have like pink stops, coral stops, yellow starts. You want it to sort of flow together. Okay, so there's the pink. And now we'll go in with the sorbet, which is sort of our coral color. And I'm going to start blending there. And you can decide how far up you want to go, how irregular you want it to be, how smooth you want it to be, like a nice straight edge, nice flowing edge, or you want it to kind of, you know, go up and down, however you want that to go. I'm going to come over a little bit more into the yellow, because when I add that, I want to have an overlap. So I would really recommend when you're doing this part of the design that you go in very light-handed to start, because this is not ink blending paper. So it is not designed with some of the properties that ink blending paper has. So if you go in too heavy, you might get brush marks that you can't blend out. So you want to make sure that you are, wiping your brush off onto something to move that ink around, and then start very light. And then once your ink is flowing and coming off the brush, then you can add a little bit more pressure to start blending it in. Because you don't want to ruin your design by ending up with those really harsh ink marks, because they're hard to get out. But the paper has no problems taking the ink if you just go slow and steady. And it's a really fun way to add. You're basically making your own background. In the actual layout, you use very little paper. It's just sort of bits and pieces. And with all the new products that are out now with inks and stencils and all those kinds of things, I'm finding with my scrapbook layouts, I'm using less paper. Still using paper, but less paper when I am creating my layouts, because you just need strips of it or pieces of it, and your embellishments are, or mine anyway, are coming from other products that I have that I can carry over and bring in. And it's really fun to do that. So I noticed Megan is here. Is she still here? I'm not sure. She said, ooh, I love all those colors. So Megan, if you're here, just give me a shout out, because I'd like to have a virtual discussion with you. Megan she loves to do journal pages. And she says, I'm no good at making cards or layouts. I just really like the journal pages. And, if that's where her heart is and that's her passion, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm learning as I'm crafting, 21 years into this, I'm still learning things. I'm learning that all of these things overlap with each other, and the techniques are very similar from project to project. So, she, over in our inspiration group, I noticed before I went live, she created a journal page in a small little journal. And I thought, oh my gosh, that could totally be a card front very easily. And exactly the same steps that she took to make the journal page is what you would use to create the card front. And that exact same technique could also be used as a portion on a full-size layout. So it's really funny. I don't know whether everybody else's mind works like that, but I start to see things and I'm like, ooh, I could totally, transfer that over onto my layout. And then all of a sudden you're creating a whole other project using exactly the same techniques. And I find I'm doing more and more and more of that. Okay, so there we have the different sections blended in to create that whole area, which is this. So again, you can now take the black ink and do your splattering, and then let that dry. It doesn't take very long at all. And, I'm always very disappointed when I look up at the camera, like my iPad. It looks like the sections are very defined, but up close, there is such a blend going on between those colors. Like right here, it looks like the blue stops and the green starts. But when I'm looking at it in person, that is not how it is. So I'm a little disappointed that it looks that way on the screen. But yeah, I think it blends beautifully together. This is where you do your ink splattering. And then, of course, you're going to start to build your layout. Now, at this point, you are also going to want to cut this down so that it measures 11.5 by 11.5. That's this, you want to stencil the white first, which we just did, and then cut it to 11.5 by 11.5. And you can see the circles sort of stop before the edge of the paper. Once you cut those pieces off, I would cut like a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch here. So that brings the sides in. And then when you have it on your background, the circles go almost right to the very edge, which works out really great. So that's that. I think I've covered everything for the layout. Oh, the stitching. I was going to show you about the stitching. Okay, I'm just going to remove this mat. See, this is why I like this size glass mat. You can just take it and get rid of it. And then you can have your regular work surface back again. Okay, so I'm going to just demo a little bit, not on this background, because you know what Amanda's going to say? Mom, can I have that for my layout? 100%, that's what she's going to do. I threw out a piece of paper earlier that I did some stenciling on. So this was from my live this morning. I stenciled that out. And I'm going to use that back side just so I can show you how to do the stitching really quick. Just how I get it so straight and even. So what I do is I take a ruler, and I like to use this ruler. And I'm going to pierce into this piercing mat. So we sell piercing mats at the store. And to me, it's a very important step. You can't put the holes in the paper nicely if you're pushing into a hard surface. So you need something that you can pierce into. Now, the tip on your piercing tool is likely graduated. So it goes down into a finer tip. So the further you push the tip into the paper, the bigger your hole is going to be, because that is how big this chamber is. So I try to keep, especially when I'm doing stitching that is this close together, you don't want to push your piercing tool in too far and make the hole big, because what will happen is when you put your thread through it, you just see this big gaping hole. So in this particular case, I pierced holes every 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to put a few in here so you can see. Okay, that was really big. Let's go lighter, and I'll show you the difference. So I'm using the ruler, and it's hard when I'm doing it live because I don't want to get my head in the screen. You can see some of my holes are bigger, but that is how I do the holes. And then when you're using your floss, the floss comes 6 strands to a piece. And I separate it. I think in this case, I'm using, how many strands would I be using? Oh, it's right here. 2 strands of floss, only 2 strands. And then I'm going every 1/8 of an inch. And then you're just going up and down the holes, and that's what you end up with. So it's quite easy to do. But the depth of your piercer and the spacing of your holes is very important. And then also the amount of floss that you use. So the least amount of floss that you use, the more it's going to look like machine stitching, because when you're stitching with thread, it's only one piece. And if you use all 6 strands, it tends to look really chunky. So just use less strands and holes closer together, and try to be as accurate as you can with your piercing, because that's going to make a huge difference. Normally I pierce every 1/4 inch, and that gives you a bit bigger stitch. But you know, when I want it to look like machine stitching, I kind of go closer together and cheat that way. And that's exactly how I did these as well. Just a line. And I sort of placed my ruler and sort of found, yeah, so that's 1 inch long, that section. So I sort of found the center point of that circle. And then I worked out from the middle out, so it was even on each side. Does that make sense? Thank you for the tips. I am loving stitching. I love stitching too. And I know there are people out there that really don't like it, and you'll leave it off and you'll be totally fine. But they are all little things that I like to add. Okay, the shopping section is right on the homepage of our website. There's an icon right there. So if you go to twoscrapbookfriends.ca, that's our homepage. You want to click the online store button, and then you'll see all the different categories. Right at the top, there's one that says calendar series, and then in there's a category for January, February, March, April, May, and there'll be now one for June. So in the June category, you're going to find all the add-ons that I talked about here. And then in a minute, as soon as I sign off, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to populate the bundles. And so it might take a minute for them to show up, but they'll pop up there, and that's where you can purchase your bundle and then go through the checkout process. So just make sure that you note that kits may not be ready until Tuesday, because tomorrow is the last day that we are open before we close for the holiday weekend, and I'm not sure that we're going to get them all ready to be processed tomorrow. So if we do, surprise, but we are closed Friday through Monday for the July long weekend. So there won't be anyone at the store Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So orders won't be processed, and then we'll be open again on Tuesday next week for pickups and in-store shopping. So like I said, I will not be back tomorrow for a live, but I will be back early next week for one for sure. I didn't get on to do a card video this week just because Shelby is on holidays and it's just Carrie and I at the store. So I was not able to spend the time to do a card video, and Christina's off. She had her knee surgery done today. And just so you all know, everything went really well. She is already discharged, and she should be at her mom's now. And she'll be staying there for at least a few days, if not part of next week. And then she'll be coming home and working on her physio and getting her knee back in shape. And then once she gets that one all done, she's going to do the other one. But everything went really well, and she's doing great. So yeah. So anyways, thanks for hanging in. I know it was a bit of a longer video, but I really wanted to demo how to do that technique with the stencil. And I'm going to go populate that category now, and then you ladies can go shopping. Oh, Shelby just showed up. You're a little late to the party. We just finished. We missed you. Oh, yep, she made it for the last minute, but that's okay. She's on holidays. She's supposed to be doing holiday things. So anyways, ladies, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to go in right now, and I'm going to populate the category, and then you can go shopping. So we will see you all soon.